Sounds like DOJ had a big secret to keep. Well, actually, it is Lindsay Halligan who seemed to have a big secret to keep about the indictment of New York State Attorney General Letitia James. Reporting now indicates that a lot of people were out of the loop at the DOJ about this, including the Attorney General and others. Lindsay Halligan, just to remind you, is the current U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia after Trump got rid of the original U.S. Attorney who didn't like the idea of bringing a baseless complaint, allegedly baseless complaint, against the New York State Attorney General. So what does this mean that she was keeping under wraps? That was a big secret at the DOJ. Big repercussions. Let's discuss. But first, hit that subscribe button. Keep making us the biggest and the best legal analysis and political analysis channel that there is. So let's get into this. Lindsay Halligan, the currently serving U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who has no prior criminal experience, used to be an insurance lawyer. Her job in the White House was to get rid of woke signs of the National Zoo. She is the top prosecutor in EDVA, which does all the big terrorism, national security type cases, given that they're in close proximity to the Pentagon, CIA, etc. So she is in charge of that office now. And she was the one who indicted James Comey and also indicted now Letitia James, New York State Attorney General, who was the one who convicted Trump and his organizations of civil fraud for multi-millions of dollars worth of civil fraud. So here's the big secret we're talking about. Reporting by CNN and the New York Times indicates that Halligan did not tell the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, or the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanch, about the fact that the case was being presented to the grand jury and an indictment was expected. Now, it's not like Bondi and Blanch had no idea this was in the works. I mean, they knew about that. And in fact, there is some hint that they had been told also that this was a weak case. They might have some concerns about it. But the United States Attorney, Halligan, didn't actually tell them this was about to happen. So evidently, from reporting, they were surprised by this. Michael Popak covered this when it was breaking news, the fact that they might have been blindsided by this, the others who were blindsided by it. But as a former DOJ insider, I've worked for the Attorney General, I can tell you this is one of the most bizarre things you can imagine at the Justice Department. Again, there's a huge hierarchy there, it's a huge bureaucracy, and for cases like this, extremely high profile, politically charged, you got to go up the chain a long ways before you take that step, seek an indictment with a grand jury against a sitting public official. That's a really big deal. Incomprehensible that it wasn't fully vetted before it happened. And why might that be? Okay, two explanations, right? First would be sheer incompetence. DOJ is utterly disorganized. Halligan does not know what she's doing. They're maybe in the middle of a shutdown. It just incompetence. No one's actually talking to each other because everyone's too busy trying to listen to what Trump's trying to tell them, right? That's option one, and that may indeed be the case. Option two, plausible deniability. There is a reason why you might want to say later, if you are Bondi or you are Todd Blanch, that, look, we'll stand by what the grand jury did, but when the stuff hits the fan, we're going to say, we didn't pre-clear this. Halligan went rogue. She just did this on her own. We weren't actually signing off on this. We're all in favor of looking at this. We think that if James did something wrong, she's got to be punished. But this particular step where she gets charged, we were out of the loop on that point. And that gives them some plausible deniability and maybe some food for thought on that. After all, the history of Trump attorneys having some problems, losing their bar licenses, being investigated, pretty common at this point. How exactly would they lose their bar licenses for doing this? We hear a lot of talk about that. A lot of people's comments on social media here, they're saying all these Trump lawyers should lose their bar licenses. Yeah, that can happen. Not crystal clear how it happens, though, if you are the Attorney General or you're the Deputy Attorney General, unless you're doing something which is obviously fraudulent. They have a lot of cover here. They can say, went through the grand jury found probable cause, therefore they indicted. It's not just us doing it. But here's some other cover. We didn't know that Halligan was going to do this. So that gives them some pretty good cover too. Just a little insurance policy in case things go wrong. Now, also reporting specifically on Todd Blanch Deputy Attorney General is the number 2. We've talked about that before. Kind of like the COO at the Justice Department in modern times. When Rudy Giuliani, historical footnote, was the Associate Attorney General, number 3, at that time, he was kind of the COO. You can imagine Giuliani would want to be in the midst of that. And there's a lot of criminal responsibility for that. Blanch himself had been a federal prosecutor. Normally, the Deputy Attorney General, known as the DAG, okay, has that COO operational authority and is very much on top of the criminal issues. Well, New York Times just did a little profile on Blanch, saying that the number 2 is kind of caught in the middle of things over at DOJ. The headline, we'll put up for you, refers to him as part enabler, part buffer. Buffer, not really the word I'd choose, okay? But there's some interesting slang terms for buffer we'll put up. The British slang would be a foolish or incompetent person. There's also, this seems a little bit dated, but the idea of sort of like a wing person, when you're meeting someone who might be interested in dating, but you're not sure if you're interested in dating them, you bring someone as a buffer. We'll put that up with the dude, Chrissy from accounting is going on a date example. Not so clear if he's really much of a buffer, because he really just does what Trump says, Todd Blanch, but absolutely no doubt he's a 100% enabler all the way. Again, query why, if you're Lindsay Halligan, you got Todd Blanch sitting in the number 2 spot who does everything Trump says, including going to interview Ghislaine Maxwell in some nonsense interview and perhaps enabling her to get a cushy prison transfer. Why you don't tell him, right? Why don't you tell the Attorney General Pam Bondi? I mean, how hard is that? Well, maybe it was hard for her to tell them because there's no one for her to delegate that to. She apparently did the whole case by herself, putting it into the grand jury because no one wanted to help her. But again, it's not like it'll be a hostile audience for you. Other person reporting indicates has been left out of this is a lawyer named Akash Singh. He is an Associate Deputy Attorney General, not to be confused with the Associate Attorney General of the United States. He's not number 3. He works within the DAG office. This is your lesson in acronyms at DOJ. He's an ADAG, an Associate Deputy Attorney General, meaning he works within the deputy's office. There are a lot of ADAGs there. They all have different portfolios, and it sounds like his particular portfolio was to kind of be the liaison to U.S. attorneys' offices across the country. If you remember the video that we did a little bit back about the directive telling these prosecutors across the country they have to bring these cases against the enemies like Soros, we'll put that up for you. Take a look. It was a good video. This person, Singh, is in charge of being the liaison to them. He also apparently did not know about the fact that Halligan was bringing the case. This is the same guy, Singh, again, very receptive audience. He apparently instructed line prosecutors, I don't care if the first grand jury you try doesn't indict, just keep trying to keep doing it until you succeed with it, try a different grand jury. Side note, that's not double jeopardy. That doesn't attach until there's actually a trial jury and panel, not the grand juries. But this is how much of a enabler that this guy Singh is. So again, rather odd that he's not in the loop either. Footnote for Singh, he was previously arrested for a DUI when he was the prosecutor in North Carolina. You know, hopefully he's got that issue under control. But I'll tell you, for people in these sorts of positions in the leadership offices, you know, that can be a pretty questionable issue if you got arrested for DUI while you are serving as a line prosecutor. So, you know, just put that into our sort of file on the qualifications and why people are actually being selected for these positions. So when you put all that together, again, either it's extremely dysfunctional that the AG, the deputy AG, one of his assistants who's in charge of being the liaison to the U.S. Attorney's Office. You can imagine a conversation in the DAG's office when they say to Singh, how come you didn't know this was happening? Extremely dysfunctional that nobody knows this is happening in such a huge case. Alternatively, or maybe in conjunction, it gives a lot of plausible deniability for the leadership at justice. And maybe they're thinking, you know, with these kinds of cases, you know, we might need to have that plausible deniability. So we'll keep an eye on this for you. And these other cases against the Trump enemies, sounds like there might be another one coming down the pike real soon. Talk to you later.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.